Levies already imposed are already having a big impact on border communities. That is especially true of Windsor, Ontario. The Auto City has been experiencing record high unemployment, which has only worsened since the trade war with the United States. CBC's Chris Ensing has that part of the story.
Natasha, I'm hearing that earlier this week, it was already looking dark for folks that are involved in the manufacturing sector here in Windsor, Essex. And that's been the case since these tariffs have come into play, really since the election sort of kicked off in the United States because of the way that companies who build things were trying to figure out where to build, what they need to build next. So when we think about how Windsor deals with unemployment, right now we have the highest rate of unemployment for major centers, and that's at 11.2%. But last year, this time, we also had the highest unemployment rate in Canada. That was at 9%. Back then, we had a job growth that was occurring, so more jobs were coming to Windsor, and more people were coming to Windsor that was actually outpacing that. Now, the job market is shrinking, the work is disappearing, and the amount of people that have been moving here, well, that's stopped as well. For the first time in 4 years, people are not coming to Windsor. And part of that can be the idea that the work here is starting to dry up because of the tariffs that have been implemented and the threat of what could happen next. And so I was talking to our local Chamber of Commerce president just a few moments ago, who said that he's been in task force meetings this week with people who employ folks in Windsor to build things, saying that the product lines are just drying up, that the work isn't there right now, and they're really worried about what's coming next. The threats, but also the idea of the instability that is just persistent here for manufacturers in Windsor, Essex.
So with all of that instability and this sort of really incredible change in just a few months in terms of the relationship between Windsor and Detroit, how are people in Windsor dealing with all of this?
Well, people on the ground have talked about, am I going to go across to Windsor or Detroit from Windsor? How am I going to go about my day-to-day life when we talk about trips or recreational fun, joy? But when we talked about employment, we're hearing that there are people who are able to stay employed because employers are doing timeshares or work shares. So if an employer has 80 hours of work that week, instead of getting rid of somebody and having one full-time employee, they're putting them onto 2 part-time shifts in an effort to keep people employed. But the problem that's happening right now is happening across southwestern Ontario. I talked to an expert who analyzes this type of data here locally. Here's something that he's been honing in on.
Density of U.S.-dependent employment, where we have 15.4% of our entire workforce working in U.S.-dependent trade. This stuff really begins to add up because it's we're talking about across against Windsor, Essex, Chatham, Kent, Sarnia, Lambton, 53,000 people who work in this U.S.-dependent trade, the majority of which are men that are well paid, and have less education. And so their rebound story is going to be different.
And that rebound story, again, we think about rebound, we go back to the COVID pandemic. Windsor was hit pretty hard with that and layoffs came. But what's happening right now, I'm told by the Chamber, I'm told by experts who analyze the data, is worse right now when it comes to unemployment, specifically for core-aged men between 25 and 54, than it was during the peak time of COVID. They're calling it a male unemployment crisis that we have going on right now. The concerns is how do you bounce out of that, and when do you bounce out of that if it's so unstable and unpredictable when you're dealing with a country that keeps changing the goalposts? That's what we're hearing here in Windsor.
CBC's Chris Ensing reporting from Windsor, Ontario.